Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024.
Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker, linked to our main Freedom Bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor. We're here every Sunday for you live from 2 to 5 Eastern, also available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Free public side, great content information for you with the real meat, the real in-depth information that I can't go to on the radio or on social media or on YouTube or on Rumble is on the subscription side, 30 cents a day, $9 a month, I believe, one of the biggest bangs for the buck in all the internet, where we bring guests forward from behind the curtain to speak about issues that the deep state do not want you to know about. They don't want you to know about it because they want to strip you of your remaining freedoms and liberties. And one of those freedoms they want to completely strip from you is your economic and financial freedom and well-being. This is a topic that we have discussed on a recurrent basis since the inception of Operation Freedom in October of 2010. You see, if the deep state can pummel you financially and economically, you essentially become their slave. They own you, right? Because if you're destitute, then you're going to have to rely on somebody, and that somebody is Big Brother. And that's exactly what they want. You would think they'd want you to be prosperous and independent. Oh, no. Because with independence and prosperity comes questioning and holding people's feet to the fire for accountability and transparency. And they don't want that. But my next guest, Ed Steer, wants you to be independent, wants you to be prosperous, wants you to be economically and financially free. And that is why the deep state despises everything Ed Steer does. Ed Steer is a keen observer of the financial scene, incredibly courageous, by the way. Many people observe, but they don't have the courage to speak up and educate others. And Ed does that every day of his life. He is also director of a phenomenal organization, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. He is the editor and founder of the First Thing I Read 5 days a week in the morning, Ed Steer's Gold and Silver Digest. Ed Steer's Gold and Silver Digest. You can go to the internet, Ed Steer, S-T-E-E-R, goldsilver.com. It's my honor to welcome back our friend and financial freedom fighter, Ed Steer. Ed, welcome back to the Operation Freedom show and platform.
Hi, Dave. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all your listeners as well.
Ed, a couple years ago, you were on this platform and got a lot of heat because you spoke about the fact that you felt we were heading into a stagflationary environment, economic environment, and this could and would harm every person of the world. Well, Ed, here we are. Welcome to stagflation. As far as the stagnant side, we now have 2 quarters in a row of negative GDP. In other words, we are hemorrhaging. Our economy is hemorrhaging. We lost our first quarter minus 1.6%, and the estimate this week came in for the second quarter at minus 0.9%, much to the chagrin of the totalitarian thugs. They want to change the definition of a recession, but that in turn is a recession, therefore stagnation. And then let's add to it the whole inflation side, and all you have to do is go try to buy a gallon of gas, or go to the grocery store, or buy any clothing, or buy any home goods. Ed, you were on Target several years ago, but took a lot of heat for it. All those boo birds, Ed, are they ringing your phone off the hook and sending your emails till your box is all full of apologies?
Well, I haven't received any to date, but I can tell you right now that the 2 quarters of negative growth that you've seen in the U.S. are just jacks for openers. We're going to see 3 quarters and 4 quarters and 5 quarters. It's going to be never ending. We're heading into what they call the new Great Depression, and we're just at the thin edge of the wedge right now. And it's going to get far worse as time goes along, and not just in the United States. I'm talking to you from here in Canada. And it's the same here, it's the same in Europe, it's the same everywhere. We're seeing a global slowdown of absolutely biblical proportions. And there's nothing they can do about it except turn on the printing presses, which the Fed and the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan have been just more than happy to do, and they're running the printing presses right hot right now just to keep this thing from going further in the toilet. But there's no stopping it now. And of course, all this monetary printing of money has one effect, and it's currency debasement. We talk about inflation, but we should really look at the correct definition of it. It is currency debasement. In other words, it takes more and more of these paper dollars that they print, or electronic equivalents thereof, to buy the goods and services that we need every day. And the more they print, the worse it's going to get. We're just basically on the thin edge of what's happened in Argentina and Venezuela and Zimbabwe and Weimar Republic, where they print until the money becomes worthless, and that's where we are at this moment in time.
Well, in fact, the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, actually fessed up to exactly what you just said, and the bought-off lamestream fake media will never play this clip. I want to play this clip and get your take. Derek, hit it.
You simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
Ed.
Wow. Everybody should listen to that once a day, every day, until it gets through their thick heads, is that they're going to burn the currency into the dirt. And I don't care whether it's the U.S. dollar, the Canadian dollar, the euro, or the Japanese yen. They're just going to print and print and print until the currency is absolutely worthless. And you heard it right out of I've never heard that clip before. That's the first time I heard it, and I cannot believe that he actually said what I just said. They're going to burn the currency, and forget about inflation. It's currency debasement that's driving prices higher. And all you have to do is look across the Caribbean Sea and look at Venezuela to see what's coming to the United States and all the rest of the countries of the world as well.
Well, then it's not surprising, Ed, that on Friday, headline from Zero Hedge, Fed's favorite inflation indicator jumps to new 40-year high while the savings rate plunges.
That's no surprise at all. As a matter of fact, I think that was the lead story in my Saturday column. The signs are everywhere. Like you said, the mainstream media is not going to cover this because they just do not want the people to know that they're being boiled alive. It's like the frog in the pot of water. You heat it up slowly, and they're going to stay around. But if you heat it up quickly, they're going to jump out. So they just keep this information as quiet as they possibly can. And the deep state, as you call them, and as I call them, and the central banks of the world, Wall Street, the media, they're all involved. They're all in this up to their necks. and they don't want to tell the people anything more than they absolutely have to. And this clip from Powell is absolutely shocking. I sat there and with my mouth open while it played. Just simply amazing, and everybody should take fair warning of exactly what he's saying.
And Ed, this economic mess everyone in our country and everyone in the world is in right now is not because, tell me if I'm wrong, Ed, is not because of incompetence. This is a willful implosion of the system. Am I off?
You're 100% correct. This is what the New World Order, deep state crowd, of not only the United States, but of Canada and Europe and Britain, have been planning. I mean, we've been off the gold standard now since 1971, and anybody that's got two synapses to rub together understands that no currency system has ever survived if it's based on fiat currency. In other words, it's not backed by anything. It's backed by nothing but the good faith of the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve, and we know what they're worth. But this system, this is being directly done. It's been going on for 120 years, ever since the Federal Reserve was formed, and it's been a slow process. But in the last 3 or 4 years, especially in the last couple, the process of imploding the system has accelerated greatly, and what we're seeing is that this is now going to come to an end. The whole thing is going to be a planned collapse at some point in the future. In my opinion, personally, is that I don't think it will survive the year. I think somewhere around the election time in the U.S., we're going to see the whole system be allowed to implode. But no, there's no stopping it now. We're done for.
Now, Ed, folks, we're speaking with Ed Steer, Ed Steer's Gold and Silver Digest. Ed, historically, if we look back to a stagflationary economic environment, the late 1970s.
Yeah, I was there for that. I know all about it.
Right? Yeah, so did I. We're both old guys. But Ed, what got people through, what held the value, were precious metals, in particular gold and silver.
Absolutely
now, Ed,
correct.
We saw a pummeling the last 3 or 4 months, which I believe was criminal. You can tell me if I'm wrong. A criminal manipulation of the paper, not physical, paper gold and silver markets. And now, Ed, we are starting to see the physical overtake control of the paper market. Am I wrong on that assessment?
You're also 100% correct on that as well. See, what happened is this: in 1971, once they took the U.S. dollar off what was left of the gold exchange standard, Nixon did that in August of 71. Then we saw the price of gold and all other commodities explode in price. And what the governments and the financial systems and the Federal Reserve and the major bullion banks of the world had to do is they had to step into the market, in the COMEX futures market where these things are traded, and short them. And shorting something means you're betting the price is going to go down. And they've been shorting these metals now for almost 50 years. They've been, keeping the prices of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, suppressed, so they just won't indicate that there's massive inflation or massive problems with the currencies. And they've been doing this now up until March of this year. I read silver analyst Ted Butler's work, and he was right about this. On March the 8th of this year, the London Metal Exchange, the LME, had a blow-up in the nickel market, where the short position got so large that it threatened to bring down the entire exchange. And so they had to cancel a whole bunch of trades, and there's lawsuits flying back and forth. But basically, the LME is done as a trading platform. And what happened in that day, according to Ted, and he's absolutely right, is that we hit the tops in gold, silver, and a whole bunch of other commodities in that day. And the COMEX, run by the commodity CME Group, which runs the COMEX, and headed by Terry Duffy, it started immediately where the banks and everybody that was short these things had to cover their short positions and get out of the markets, or they were going to meet the same fate as the LME. So what they ended up doing was driving the price lower and lower and lower and lower, and right up until I think it was Tuesday of last week, as you pointed out, that we hit the absolute, I think it was Thursday a week ago, we hit the absolute rock bottom And after the Federal Reserve meeting on Wednesday, prices have started to rise. So these big short holders, the banks, the Federal Reserve, anybody involved, the Bank for International Settlements, Bank of England, whoever's involved in this, large banks and financial institutions, have finally reduced their negative bets in the precious metals to the smallest they've ever been in history. They're basically out of the market as far as the short position goes. And now we're seeing, as you correctly pointed out, is that we're seeing the result of that as the precious metals took off on Wednesday and again on Thursday and then on Friday. It's my opinion that the price management scheme in the precious metals and all commodities came to an end on Wednesday.
So, Ed, you mentioned Ted Butler. I'll call him the top silver analyst in the world. Do you believe that's an overstatement?
Not at all. He's the Oracle Delphi. He's been doing this for, 38 years. He started back in, I think it was 1985. He's a commodities broker. He dealt in this stuff and every other commodity. So he's experienced in this. And he's been writing about the silver market now for almost 40 years. He's the world authority on it, and most people recognize that, as I do.
And Ed, you and Ted and a number of others have documented the fact that as these banksters, let's call them, have criminally manipulated the market down with their computer algorithms and their paper shorts, as they were rigging the market down in the paper market, they were buying physical gold and physical silver at reduced prices, to the point where these banksters, and by the way, China, Russia, India, a number of other countries have done the same. They're loaded to the gills in physical gold and physical silver. And then Ted wrote this that you reported on, and I want you to comment on it. You said the following in this weekend's column: Ted Butler, in order to convey how bullish, in other words, price going up, he was about the current setup in silver, had this to say, quote, "So let there be no doubt. This is a time for maximum silver exposure. Not only is the price extremely low on every possible relative and absolute metric, which automatically greatly reduces its risk-reward equation, it's hard to imagine what world event," how about Nancy Pelosi flying over on a broom to Asia and to maybe Taiwan, but anyway, "what world event could possibly derail silver's future date with the destiny for sharply higher prices," end quote. Yeah, and you wrote, "Yes, gold and a lot of other commodities will do well, but silver will outshine them all by at least one order of magnitude, if not far more, in its final blow-off top." Ed, gold and silver are by far, tell me if I'm wrong, an incredible insurance policy to this economic havoc that the deep state has set in motion to bring down the world economy.
No, there's no doubt about it. That's the only thing that will save you. Other commodities will, but gold and silver are the easiest to get your hands on and keep in a safe place where nobody knows they are. J.P. Morgan, and I'm talking about the man himself, back in the early 1900s, said gold is money and everything else is credit. And he was speaking the truth at that time. And Jay Powell said, they're printing money hand over fist and basically debasing the currency. So you look at 100 years ago and you look at today, what's going on, it's crystal clear that the only thing that will save people is hard assets, of which gold and silver are the primary ones. And of course, as Ted Butler's been going on for years, and I've been going on for years about, silver is really the one that's going to take off higher. It's going to absolutely explode in price at some point. And like I said, and you pointed out, that looked like it started on Wednesday. So don't say you weren't warned.
Now, Ed, you have your finger on the pulse of retail markets, of what's happening with precious metals, their physical supply, what's happening on the ground. What's your inside take right now, Ed, on what's happening on the ground based on all your contacts at the retail, at the ground level?
Okay, I want to go back a couple of years on that. Just before, in January, February of last year, a new group came out on the internet just to show you how cheap silver is. Reddit.Wall Street Silver Crowd, they showed up out of nowhere last February with no members, and now they're up to 195,000 people. They've been promoting silver religiously without stop 24/7 since then. And when they showed up in the market at the time, it blew out the price up to $30, and the boys had to step in and crush it. But ever since that point, the demand for and before that actually, but the retail demand for silver has gone absolutely through the roof. And up until about 2 months ago, silver was almost impossible to get your hands on. The dealers didn't have any, and the lead times from the suppliers were long, and the mints were backed up for months, and you just couldn't get. There's a little more of it now, but that only lasted until Wednesday when the price blew up in the COMEX futures market, and I've had a contact with a couple of bullion dealers since then, and they said, sales are right back to where they were 3 months ago. They said they just can't keep the stuff in stock. And as I point out, the supply lines for silver and gold are very long and very deep, are very thin and very shallow. And it won't take any physical demand, much more physical demand than we got right now to clean out the supply line once again. So I urge people, as I've been doing last month, last year, to buy as much as silver and gold as they possibly can without getting stupid about it, as what you can afford. But that's the only thing that's going to save you when this whole thing either melts up or blows down that the deep state's got planned for us in the future.
Folks, we're speaking with Ed Steer from Ed Steer Gold and Silver Daily or Digest as well. Ed, you for years have said we're near the end when you start to see some of the banksters being held accountable, if you will, even though the system is obviously beyond tilted in their favor. But you'll know we're near the end because, well, they'll need cover. As the system comes down, everyone will focus on the system coming down, and they will stop paying attention to people being held, if you will, accountable. Well, Ed, do you just think it's a coincidence that JP Morgan gold traders are now on trial in Chicago for their criminal manipulation of the precious metals market? Do you think that's a coincidence?
Okay, well, they were charged 1.5 years or 2 years ago. It's been a long time. They were actually officially charged a long time ago, and the trial just got started now. J.P. Morgan and a lot of other banks, Deutsche Bank and Scotia Bank and you name it, every international bank out there, U.S. and abroad, has been found guilty of manipulating gold and silver prices. I mean, that's the record. This is going back 5 or 10 years. It's just the facts of the matter. But the point you make about this, J.P. Morgan paid a fine of what? Just under $1 billion, and they didn't admit guilt, but they paid $1 billion, and now they're off the hook scot-free. That was a couple of years ago. But these 2 traders or 3 traders are on trial right now. These guys are the ones that actually were doing the work. And if you read all the press stuff on them, they sound like they're guilty as hell. But the fact that they're being tried right now, and this is coming to the forefront at this particular point in history, I find to be all too convenient. Like it's being, like they're trotting this out now, and it's got a lot of press attention out there. And I don't know if this is some sort of sign or it's been planned this way, but boy, I'll tell you what, they're as guilty as heck, and everybody knows the precious metals have been rigged up until Wednesday of this week. So, there's so many moving pieces in the precious metals market right now, you can't even keep track. But I'll reiterate one more time, if you want to save yourself from what's coming, the only way you're going to be able to do that is with physical silver and physical gold. And to listen to those guys say the way they rig the markets, the markets have been rigged for the last 40, 50 years, and it's all coming to an end, so get it while you still can.
Ed, educate our listeners on how they can dial into your great daily digest.
Well, you've been mentioning it almost continuously during this whole interview. So just Google my name, Ed Steer, S-T-E-E-R, and gold silver, Ed Steer Gold Silver, and my website will pop up. There's a link there that you can click on. It gives you a free sample column. You look at it and it shows you what the content is. You can read that and decide whether or not you're interested in what I have to say. But it's there, and it costs US $100 for about 260 columns per year.